Hi honeys, it's Michelle. In this video, I will be going over the books that I read in the month of January. And I do plan on doing these every month. I feel a little bit bad, not just for you watching, but for myself. I didn't read as many books as I usually do. And I really don't know why. I think part of it was for 5 days of the month I was out of town and I was staying with my mom and I didn't read at all while I was there. Normally, I will read quite a bit before I go to bed, whether I'm on vacation or not, but for some reason I didn't. We were kind of watching more TV at night than reading, and so it kind of slowed down my typical amount of reading that I do. I usually read at least 4 books a month, but there's always February. So the first book that I read was And Then There Were None, and this was an Agatha Christie book. This is actually I got it from coffee in it blah, blah, blah. I got it from my Coffee in a Classic subscription, and I do plan on reading the other two, but so far I only read the first one in here, which was And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. When it came to this first book in here, the And Then There Were None, it felt like there was a lot of characters, a lot of them. So I actually did what I will typically do if I immediately feel like there's a bunch of characters in a book. I got some notes and I wrote down information on each of the characters in the book, and I put that in the book so that I can reference it when I need to. Because I don't know if you've read this book or not, but I was constantly, who's Anthony Marston? Is that the same person as Philip Lombard or that kind of thing? It was constant for me. So it was nice to have these notes. And by the time I really started getting comfortable with who the different characters were, the book was almost over. But it is what it is. It's funny because I've always considered myself to be a huge mystery book fanatic. I had never actually read a book by Agatha Christie before. And I really can't explain why, I just hadn't. But I do have the other 2 books in here, and I've got about 4 other of her books that I just picked up at the Goodwill recently. So I'll definitely be reading more of her books in the near future. This was a very fast read. It was very enjoyable. It did not take me very long to feel like I had to know who did it. Because of that, I found myself staying up a little bit later at night reading, trying to find out more information. I guessed pretty early on who I thought it might be, and I just filed that person away in my mind, and I did end up being right about who it was. Sometimes in books, especially some of the newer murder mysteries, I have found that who did it ends up being somebody that isn't even mentioned in the book before you find out that that's who it was, which I guess is more realistic. I mean, if you were a detective, you might end up finding out that the person that killed someone is somebody that you weren't even looking into. So I kind of like that she went with the old classical format of giving you hints about who it might be and having all the possible bad guys be revealed at the very beginning of the book, and it kind of gives you more of a chance to put your brain to work, put your reasoning skills to work, and kind of figure it out. I really liked that. The one negative thing I have to say about the book, I didn't feel that Miss Christie did a whole lot of character development, and because of that, I found myself not caring if people got murdered in the book because all I really knew about them was their name and profession. I do wish that her books were a little bit longer, just in the sense of maybe there was a little bit more character development. I really would prefer to somewhat care in some way when somebody gets killed, or maybe if they're a really, a real villain, maybe, I hate to admit it, maybe cheer when they get killed. But in this book, I didn't care either way when people got killed. It was like, oh, okay, this person died too now. And then, moving along because it just I had no reason to care, if that makes sense. This book is The Dry by Jane Harper, and I just now have joined a book club, and this was the first book that I got to read as part of the book club. While I was reading the book, the wildfires were all over the news here in the US, and the place that this book took place in was a fictional town, but it was right in that spot. I just found it kind of interesting that while these things were going on and I was hearing about them and I was very invested in the whole story, I'm reading a book about a dry spell in that exact part of Australia and how that can affect things. I'll probably always remember that that was going on when I read this book. I really like the main character, who is a federal agent named Aaron Falk. He just seemed like such a human character. He wasn't perfect. You know, sometimes when you read these murder mystery kind of books or a thriller, well, really, when you read any books, the main character is always gorgeous with a perfect body and a bunch of friends, and everybody loves them. And that gets kind of wearing on me after a while. And it was nice to have the main character just be a human being with flaws and issues and a whole backstory of problems. I liked it. This book really got me thinking about the differences between living in a city and a country. I'm trying to think of how to describe this book to you without giving anything away. Basically, the main character finds out that his childhood best friend and his family have all been killed, and there's a bunch of question around who did it and why, and he's being asked by his friend's parents to come back to town and to help solve what happened. So he goes back to the town that he grew up in, but he fled under duress as a teenager from the town and really doesn't want to go back. And there's so much information about the town and what he went through as a teenager and why he left. And I just found it interesting because whether we want to run from our problems or not, or our past or not, they still make us who we are. They still mold us into the people that we become as adults. So he's living in the city now and not really having to deal with certain issues that he has to deal with when he goes back home to a small town and all that that entails. It really got me thinking about how blessed I feel to live in a city, because my neighbors really don't know me. They don't know my name. They don't know anything about me or my life or my personal business. All they know is what they see from just walking past me every couple of days. But it's not the same as in a small town where people are so nosy and they know everything about each other. It really got me thinking about why people stay living in places that they don't like. How a community as a whole can decide that somebody's guilty of something or that somebody did something. That person will never live it down. It's almost like their life is ruined if they stay living there, even if they're guilty of something or not. Once, if you live in a small community, once the community's decided that you did something, you did it. And it doesn't matter what a court says or whether or not you've been let off or what have you. And so it's just really fascinating thinking about the differences of city versus country living. I will tell you, it took me quite a while to figure out who did it. And when I did figure it out, okay, I don't want to give anything away, but I felt very manipulated by the author. If you read it, I would love to hear if you felt that way too. And then the other thing that I found so compelling about this book was how investigators can really bring a lot of self-doubt into people's minds about what they did or didn't do, or what they were or weren't responsible for, which has been a subject that I've really been thinking about a lot lately, and I just find it so fascinating. I did find the book starts out with a very dark and violent situation occurring. And when I went to the book club to talk about the book, I found that a lot of the women there felt that the book was very, very dark and scary. I did not find it to be dark or scary. But I did think that the opening chapter was somewhat dark, but not in a scary way. It might be that I'm a little bit desensitized to it because I read so many murder mysteries. But I did find this book to be wonderful. And the author, Jane Harper, she has written a few other books since then. This was her first book. And her second book was also with this Aaron Falk character. And I cannot wait to get a copy and see what happened in his life after this book. Also, a fun little side note, I found out that Reese Witherspoon bought the rights to this book and she is going to make sure that it gets made into a movie. And I'm not sure if she's going to be in the movie. If she is, there's only one character she really could play, and it's a rather small role, but it'll be fun to see if she's in it. And it's always fun to read a book and then find out that they're making it into a movie, and then you get to watch it and see what you thought. So I'm pretty excited. So let me know down in the comments if you have read this book and if you loved it as much as I did. The third and final book is this. It's A Nearly Normal Family by M.T. Edvardsson, and he is a Swedish author. This book was originally written in Swedish and then transcribed into English. And it's been published in quite a few different languages since it originally came out. Now let's see, when did it come out originally? It was originally published in Sweden in 2018, and then it was copywritten in English in 2019. This book is, I'm trying to think of how to describe this one. It's really interesting. It's almost like 3 books in one book. The first third of the book is about a guy named Adam, who is a pastor and a father with a daughter who's been accused of murdering someone. And so it goes through right after this person got killed, the dad, Adam's reaction, and kind of going through what he does in the weeks following before the trial. It goes into how he feels about his daughter and whether or not he thinks that she did it, the lengths that a parent might go to save their child if they really think that they're innocent. Then the second third of the book is from the viewpoint of Stella, who is his daughter, and her story of what happened, what led up to the murder. It doesn't say whether or not she did it yet. And I don't want to give anything away, so I'm going to be a little vague here about the rest of the book. But so her part of the book is when she's already in jail, waiting for trial, and talking to her lawyer and the psychologist there, and just going through her backstory and how she might have ended up in the position that she's in. The third part of the book is from the viewpoint of the mother, and the mother of Stella. I can't believe this, but I can't remember her name, and I just finished this book. I don't know. But it's from the mother's viewpoint, and the mother is a lawyer, and so that's even more fascinating hearing her viewpoint. And it goes into a little bit about the past and her story from her perspective, and then what happens in the courtroom. While this book is a whodunit, it's really about the intricacies of a family and what family members will do to stick up for each other. And it also kind of goes into how well do we really know our family members. It was so fun too, reading the book and thinking about the different perspectives and how there can be one event, but all 3 of the characters saw it differently or took different things from it. But it really did kind of highlight that just because someone is a family member, that doesn't necessarily mean that you know that much about them. And I think that might be true. I think sometimes we might know more about our friends or our spouses than we do the rest of our family, which is kind of interesting when you think about it. But I thought this was a very enjoyable read. I highly recommend it. I do think that this, actually, all three books, while I loved all three of them, which is unusual for me to like every book I read in a month's time, but while I really enjoyed all three of them, I don't see myself reading any of them again. I will repetitively read certain books on a yearly basis for the rest of my life if I love them. But none of these books really hit me in that way. I'm not saying I didn't enjoy them, but they were just a one time reading experience for me. So, have any of you guys read this book or anything else by M.T. Edvardsson? I'd be interested to hear. I'm going to be doing the books that I read in February. If there's any books that you want me to do a review on, please let me know. I'm not saying that I will read them, but I will consider reading them, which is the best I can offer at this point. I would also like to know if you read any really good books in the month of January. Well, thank you for watching. Please give me a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content of this video. I do plan on doing a book review each month. I'm also going to be doing a coffee and a classic unboxing each month. And I'm trying to think if I should do a third book video each month. I'm not really sure. I'll have to really think about it, but I just love books and I'm excited about the response I've been getting from some of you when I do book videos. It's good to know that I'm not the only book lover out there. Have a great day. Bye.